Can I say something here? It seems like from the way we're describing the Prophet here, it seems like he had a luxurious life and that he used gel to make it so nice and so on and so forth. Can we maybe explain that this was just his natural state?
I think you've just done that. I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it sounds like it,
absolutely.
yeah.
He would comb his beard and his hair and stuff like that, but he wouldn't spend too much time as in vanity, looking at gelling his hair or whatever. They didn't have gel at the time anyway. But can I get the book back, Ali? Is it possible?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Another thing, Aki, I was going to say, do you not think that it's important that, for example, people who are in the dawah, it's very important the way we dress, the way we conduct ourselves, be it, how we look. Sheikh, would you say that it is important for us to conduct ourselves in a way where, for example, be it physical appearance, myself, I didn't choose to be handsome, Sheikh. I know. I'm joking, Sheikh. But in a nutshell, Sheikh, wouldn't you say, looking at this, what we're going through, isn't it important for a person in the dawah to have a certain demeanor, look a certain way? Because it seems like the Prophet, the way he walked, when he would speak to somebody, he would turn his, direction to him. So, do you think that is something that we can use? Because today, I actually got someone sent me that I don't know if it was Sheikh bin Baz. He was saying that a person who's in the dawah who adorns himself, he should be warned against. I don't know where you got this kalam from, but how do we find the middle path where we're just it's not all about the outer, but for the sake of Allah, the way we conduct ourselves. For example, with our organization Salam, we started to wear suits because we realized we tried t-shirts, we tried jumpers, and people don't take you seriously. But the moment you wear a suit, all of a sudden it's what are you selling? What would you say?
Yeah, so mainly, for example, there's a hadith in narration that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Allah Azza wa Jal made the prophets in the most beautified way. So that shows something. And usually people will accept knowledge from a person with a certain demeanor that he wouldn't accept it from. So it shows wisdom from the side of Allah Azza wa Jal, that He created all prophets and He created the Prophet ﷺ in this with these features. So and we know the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, Allah Jameel yuhibbul Jamal, that Allah Azza wa Jal is beautiful and He likes beauty. In response to the companion that said that a person likes his clothing to be beautiful and he likes his shoe wear to be beautiful. So
and do you know, it's interesting you mentioned that hadith, because if you took that hadith and applied it to the discussion that we were just having before about aesthetics, then we believe that Allah, for example, when we talk about the moral issue, we said that really what goodness is, Allah is good, and so wherever goodness is, that's where goodness is, right? And then when you remove goodness, that's where evil is. Likewise, you could say that Allah is Jameel, right? So how is it explicable that we have things which are at least on face value, cross-culturally, considered to be beautiful? It could be said that this is an extension or manifestation of the Jamal of Allah, the beauty of Allah. Because the thing is, a lot of the reason why you find these discussions between philosophers about morality and mathematics and beauty, all these three categories in particular, because they have a different ontological status to science, is because you can't put them under a microscope. But then how do you explain that all these people conceive of them in the same way? So with a robust theological understanding, for example, we're saying that Allah is Jameel, therefore, where there's manifestation of Jamal or beauty, that is where the beauty is, and when that's removed, that's where the beauty is not. Same thing can be said about morality. So having the attributes of God actually being as an explaining force for how these things are explicable, actually is one of the most powerful things we have in the Islamic tradition. Because I'm cognizant of time, I just want to move on to the next. Do you want to?
It's just a quick question. So what age range are we talking about for the Prophet, peace be upon him? And what was he like when he was younger? 20s?
So a lot of these descriptions would be consistent throughout the time that they were, because from 40 to 63, this is what we're talking, obviously, right? That's when they were jotting down what he looked like. But when he got a bit older, the main difference would be that he had some obviously whitening and greying of his beard, but as we mentioned, it's not even that much. So there was a level of that, but it wasn't that much. And the fact that that stuff is mentioned, for example, there are aspects about the Prophet ﷺ's physical appearance, which I mentioned, which show you that it's not some kind of a mythological figure that's being described here. The whiteness of the beard, the slight arch of the nose, there's lots of things there that you can see that it's not a mythological figure being described, it's a human being, okay, which no one would have, if you want to portray him in a manner that would seem extra human, you wouldn't inject those aspects in there.
Even during battles, when he loses his teeth and stuff like that.
For example, in Uhud, where he lost his teeth and stuff like that, if he was meant to be this kind of extra human person that never was touched and never was hurt and his hair never became grey and nothing happened to him, once again, that would, we would look at with suspicion, say what's going on here. But the fact that these aspects are there as well goes back to the first session that we talked about preservation. So I want to ask questions now. Why not taller? Why not shorter? Why not bodybuilder? Let me ask this question. I mean, so why was the Prophet ﷺ not taller? Ask, what does actually height benefit in? Okay, so really and truly, if you look at, for the sake of argument, the sports that human beings play, where height is actually an advantage, there's only really a few sports, if you consider it. Like basketball is an obvious one, right? Being a goalkeeper maybe in a football match. Being a footballer, height is not actually advantageous. Otherwise, the best footballers will be the tallest ones. In fact, probably the opposite is true. Yeah. Some of the best footballers are the shortest ones. Like Messi is probably 5'6" or something. I don't know. Maradona and so on. It's not really that. So where there's kickboxing, there's a correlation. A lot of the kickboxers were tall and they had long legs. But even then, like with boxing and stuff, if you look at the Mike Tyson, 5'10", 5'11", if you look at the majority of UFC champions, for the sake of argument, MMA champions, they're not actually 6'5" and over. They're not. And even that's the heavyweight division. Wrestlers are not the tallest people in the world. Swimming are not the tallest people in the world, although Phelps had a very high... If you look at Phelps, for example, who's the best swimmer of all time, he was tall, he was about 6'3", but he had a very unusual, he had like a Johnny Bravo type body. So his lower half, he had short legs and high torso. That's why he can, do the thing. So he had a very... But Allah didn't send the Prophet ﷺ for the NBA. No, it's the case. So why does he need? Like I said, if we're playing the law of averages here, on a sports level, what is the most? If you could ask the question, what is the most advantageous body type? I would say it's the mesomorphic. It's the mesomorphic body type, unless we're talking about very specific sports where height is required, or the opposite, where shortness is required. There are some sports where being short can be advantageous. I don't know of them now, at the top of my head.
Jockey.
Yeah.
Jockey? Yeah. Is that right, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
F1 driver.
Yeah, maybe football, bro. Maybe like what considers to be like below 5'7" or 5 foot, whatever, where you got a lower center of gravity, it might be good. Even some kinds of wrestling. Look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. One of the best of all time, Marcio Garcella, or if I'm saying his name wrong, but he's like 5'6" or 5'7". Bro, Sanchai, we're talking about kickboxing. Sanchai, who's seen as the best kickboxer of all time, is 5'6". He's 5'6". That's how tall he is. But he takes out the tallest and the most lanky of opposition. It's Sanchai. So being tall, there is this misnomer that somehow being tall makes you. It's actually overrated in the current age. So people say, why isn't he taller? Why should he be taller? What function? What is the Prophet ﷺ doing? The Prophet ﷺ is engaging in war. Okay, fine. If he's engaging in war with swords, then are the ones fencing, are the best fencers the tallest ones? Not necessarily. Surely there can be some kind of an advantage of having a longer reach. I'm not saying so. There isn't. Of having a longer reach when it comes to fencing and sword fighting. There would be some advantage. But we haven't got the information here. But reach is different to height, by the way. For example, if you look at... Volkanovski's, I don't know what his reach is, probably 74 or something like that, but he's quite short. Volkanovski.
Alexander the Great was tiny. He was 5'5" or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's really small.
But like, for example, a lot of these, McGregor is like 5'8", but he's got like 76 reach. So, reach is different and then there's the difference between the arm reach and the leg reach. So anyway, these are all things. But what I'm saying to you is that being tall is overrated in the current society. So why then want to impose something which doesn't have really any functional value and say, why was he not taller? Because a lot of people will be asking, why is he not taller? Why should he be taller? It's not like being taller is going to give you that much advantage. The second thing could be said which is, why was he not more muscular? Well, if anyone knows anything about sports, they know that being muscular is actually cumbersome and unfunctional. Now look, for example, just at boxing, for the sake of argument. Anthony Joshua was he would be considered a muscular boxer. But then he had to lose all this weight because actually it wasn't helping him. If you look at the beginning of his kind of title defense and stuff, he was about 110 kilos, 112, 113 kilos. He went down to 106 because it wasn't helping him. It was gassing him out. Now imagine now you're running up. You're in the military environment. You're running. You're moving. Being heavy does not help you. It doesn't. Being a big man doesn't help you. A huge man. Obviously being somewhat big is fine, but being a huge man with a lot of weight doesn't help. I went to Jabal, what do you call it? Noor. Jabal Noor, right? Where the Khira is there. Everybody else found it easier to get up that hill than me. Every single other person found it easier. I found it hardest to get up the hill. At the time I was 125 kilos. I'm telling you, the reason why is because of the gravity and the weight and stuff. So imagine now, even for something as simple as the Prophet ﷺ going to the Ghar, it would have been difficult for him to do it. I was actually finding it was a strenuous workout. It was a strenuous workout. So being that heavy and muscular and stuff, how's that helping anybody? So I think people now overrate the muscular frame. There's no reason for, but surely they all said he was athletic frame. They all said he was athletic frame. So if he had that athletic frame, he has everything that is required for his mission. It's the long story. So these are just some things. I know some young people are thinking about this in the back of their heads.
You can also say like Andy Ruiz, a fat Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
Like, that says a lot, you know.
Yeah, his cardio was probably insane as well, right? Yeah.
But still, he was fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So body shape is not always, doesn't translate into functionality. Everyone knows that. It's becoming a joke when they put these kind of, if you go online at bodybuilder versus, see a bodybuilder versus a BJJ guy. Like for example, a Carl Froch. I don't know, Golovkin. I don't know. Get me a guy that's 65 kilo, 70 kilo, but at the highest level of boxing, 70 kilo, and give me Ronnie Coleman. Who would win in a fight? Is there even a question? It's no question. He would be completely demolished. The boxer would win. Or let's say, for example, a BJJ practitioner, a small guy, Gordon Ryan or something like that. Put him next to, I don't know, like your biggest body, Jay Cutler. Who's going to win in a fight? There's not even a question. No one's going to ask that question seriously because they know that muscle doesn't translate into functionality. So being a huge prophet and stuff, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. In fact, that is really, bodybuilding is more, and even Arnold Schwarzenegger said this himself. He said bodybuilding is more of an art than a sport. Because what you're trying to do is it looks nice if you, within certain contexts, it looks nice. And there is some level of functionality to it. You are stronger by having that much muscle. But the disadvantages en masse, like on balance I should say, is actually more than the advantages. A lot of them die because steroid uses. If you want to get to the highest level, you have to take steroids. This body that you're seeing now is a steroid body. Like, you know what I mean? If you look at the natural, in the early 20th century, 21st century, 20th century, George, what's his name? Atlas or these kind of Charles Atlas. That body is completely different to bloody what happens in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So what steroids does, it changes the game completely. And so you couldn't get to that level. We are now seeing freaks of human beings. That could never exist in any other time in human history. The most muscular men of today are the most muscular men of all time. The most muscular, there's no human epoch where I had Ronnie Coleman in it. There's not, except for the one that we had.
The Greeks used to...
they were big and strong, but nothing like Ronnie Coleman.
Steroids,
They didn't have those steroids. They didn't have what we had. I mean, if you just look at the 60s and 70s compared to the 2000s in terms of Mr. Olympia, there is a massive difference. And that doesn't look good. And these guys look at Ronnie Coleman. How many operations did he have, surgeries?
He's on a wheelchair.
He's in a wheelchair, the man.
Yeah.
So it's not something which shows you. I mean, what's the advantage of that?
There's no longevity.
No longevity. It doesn't. Frankly, it doesn't even look good, in my opinion. But I can see within the parameters of bodybuilding why it would look good. Like if I had got myself into the cultures, okay, or whatever, I can see, okay, this is good and this is whatever. But for me, it's not functional. It doesn't do anything. Now moving on. So let's go to another question now, which is what is virtue? Okay, and I've just skipped. We're going to go back to the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad and all that kind of stuff, but we talked about the physical characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad. So now we have an image of the Prophet Muhammad, right? We know what he looks like. We know we've got what his facial structure looks like, what his eyes look like, what his eyebrows look like, what his nose look like, what his beard look like, what his hair look like. That's the full thing. You know, what his body looked like. It's all there. So the question is, what did he act like?